Um, just to eliminate some confusion, this is not the Mike Miller Hootenanny yet. My name is Bobby Neal. I'm the Secretary of Health for the state of Maryland. I want to thank everybody for coming. About a month ago, we made a little history upstairs, getting that great federal waiver agreement contract done. Today, we've got some great news for Marylanders who have to get their health insurance as individuals on the open market. This is great news. I think it's going to make a big difference in the quality of life of hundreds of thousands of Marylanders. And so without any further ado, I'd like to introduce my boss, the 62nd Governor of Maryland, the Honorable Larry Hogan. Boss.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I want to thank you. I want to thank Senate President Miller and Speaker Bush for being here, as well as Maryland's Insurance Commissioner Al Redmer, Michelle Eberly, the Executive Director of the Maryland Health Benefit Exchange, the Maryland Hospital Association, MedChi, and all of the other stakeholders who are joining us this afternoon. We are thrilled to be here today to announce that we have officially received federal approval for the creation of our innovative state reinsurance program, which will protect Marylanders from facing potentially massive increases in their health insurance premiums. The Affordable Care Act was poised to again force health insurance rates in Maryland to increase by 50% or more. Increasing rates have been a problem for close to a decade now and are a direct result of the massive changes in the health care laws in Washington. Our team worked on potential solutions for more than a year, and in April we enacted landmark legislation which created the structure for a state reinsurance program which would be administered by the Maryland Health Benefit Exchange. We directed the exchange to apply for federal approval to create this program, which is the largest of its kind in the United States of America. With this federal approval that we've just received, our insurance commissioner, Al Redmer, can now go to all of the insurers in the market and direct them to recalculate 2019 rates, taking into consideration that this new market-driven reform and program is now in place. By October, we expect to be able to publish new insurance rates without the crushing increases that have become common over the past decade. With our innovative new reinsurance program, the health insurance market in Maryland will finally have the chance to be competitive and dynamic. These cost reductions and this competition will lead to more insurers entering the marketplace and make health care more affordable for all Marylanders. These problems should have been solved in Washington a long time ago, but they haven't been, and there's surely plenty of blame to go around. But in Annapolis, we've chosen a different path. Here in Annapolis, together we decided to take action ourselves to stabilize the individual marketplace and to prevent crushing insurance rate increases for Marylanders. I want to sincerely thank our partners, the Senate President and the Speaker and the legislative leaders from both sides of the aisle for working together with us on this common sense bipartisan solution to address this crisis head on and to prevent these 50% rate increases. I also want to especially thank CMS Administrator Seema Verma, who unfortunately was unable to be with us here today, but was absolutely critical to in helping us to move this forward at the federal level. And this is yet another example of what can be accomplished when we work together. Just last month, as Secretary Neal said, we all came together to officially execute and enact our unique and innovative total cost of care contract, or as we call it, the Maryland model, which is the only one of its kind in the nation. It was a major step forward in our efforts to ensure that every Marylander has access to quality health care, and another tremendous bipartisan team effort, both at the state and federal level. Here in Annapolis, we have consistently proven that we can find common sense bipartisan solutions to the serious problems that face us. These actions, in my opinion, should serve as an example for the rest of the nation of what can be accomplished when both sides of the aisle and all levels of government join together to develop innovative solutions. We are making real progress toward addressing these healthcare challenges. We are making healthcare in Maryland more accessible and more affordable, and together we are changing Maryland for the better. Thank you.
We'll next hear from my old and dear friend, the President of the Senate. Somebody asked me the other day, was Mike Miller, is he the last living witness to Washington's resignation in the old Senate chamber? I said no, but he was there for the ratification of the Treaty of Paris. Without any further ado, the President of the Senate, Mike Miller.
Thank you. But I'd just like to point out that when Secretary Neal was a legislator and I was a young legislator and stuff, this office right here was a tourist visitor spot. You know, you came in there and you got your brochure, and you're greeted by some people that would give a tour. Over here, the old House chamber, this was divided in two. They had a false ceiling, and this was the Senate side had this portion, and the House side had this portion. They were just bare rooms. And of course, the old Senate chamber, water was dripping down on the side and what have you. All this has changed, including these gorgeous original portraits of the first 4 Lord Baltimores right here. And of course, I stand in front of George Washington's resignation speech. I point all these things out because not everybody knows our history. Thomas Jefferson used to have an office right on that second floor up there, and he would walk around our state circle for health purposes in the morning. And so, you know, it's important that we come together to say that government is alive and well and working. You know, in Jefferson's time and Washington's time, they worried about political parties. Washington said you got to stay away from political parties. His farewell to address. And of course, what happens on Capitol Hill shows the evil of political parties when you let one side or the other not let people cross the aisle and shake hands and make positive things happen. This is an example of both parties working together and then being forced to work with the federal government who caused this problem. You know, the governor talked to the Affordable Health Care Act. It wasn't the Affordable Health Care Act that caused this problem. The Affordable Health Care Act resulted in 95% of Marylanders having insurance. But what happened is our president thought that he'd gutted the bill completely so that it would not be sustainable by his actions and the actions of a majority on Capitol Hill. But as a result of that, we've had to come together, working with Senator Middleton, Senator Kasemeyer, Delegate Jocelyn Pena-Melnick, and then working with this administration, former Senator Neal. When they first came to me with this proposal, I said, the governor will never agree to this. You know? And before Bobby Neal got to him, I don't think he would have. But he did agree to it because there's some significant changes in the proposal. I mean, really significant changes that steer away from the political base of that party. But it's about solving problems, but solving Maryland problems. And that's what this bill does. And the good news is it's for 5 years. So we don't have to revisit this next year or the year after that or 3 years from now. This is for 5 years. So the marketplace is not just going to be sustainable, it's going to be workable, and those 95% of the people that have health insurance are going to be able to continue to have health insurance because of this bill. I want to congratulate everybody who made this happen. I particularly want to thank our governor, I want to thank our speaker, and I want to thank former Senator Neal and everybody in the governor's staff who worked with our staff on the Senate side of the House to make this bill happen. It's very important legislation, and hopefully this is an augur of more positive things to come. Thank you so very much.
Well, next here from Speaker Bush. Every time I think about health care, I think about not Speaker Bush, but Chairman Bush. And when he was chairman of the Economic Matters Committee, some of the old-timers will remember that, in 1993, we had the small group reform. And small businesses across the state benefit from that small group reform, and it is stable, it is strong, there's not a lot of static in the rates, and my fervent hope is that the individual market, when we're looking down the road, will be as stable and as reliable as the small group market was under the leadership of then Chairman Bush, now Speaker Bush. Mike?
Actually, they were the fun days. I see Insurance Commissioner Redmer there, and we had worked together to stop the conversion of Blue Cross Blue Shield from a nonprofit to a for-profit. And then he went out and became the insurance commissioner, and he had to face the wrath of the insurance commissioner from Delaware and from Washington, D.C. And he said, you know, I just wish you were there to get the wrath that I got. So we traveled a long way together. But this, to me, and I think it's been said by the governor and the president of the Senate, is the most important piece of legislation that we passed this year. On December 22nd, the federal government passed a tax bill, and in that tax bill, the fact of the matter is they did away with the tax on insurance companies, the premium tax on insurance companies that covered some of the most vulnerable people in the United States of America. There was about 250,000 Marylanders that were going to be without health insurance unless we took action during this last legislative session. And, you know, the fact of the matter is we pulled everything together. I want to thank the insurance industry as well, because the tax that the federal government had repealed, we just passed it over to our local insurance companies that sell insurance in the state. And why is that important? First of all, they don't want to be out there in a situation where people that were insured didn't get insurance. So they were invested in this. All the hospitals were invested in this. All the physicians were invested in this. And it became very evident as we went through this that if we could take the $380 million that was going to be accumulated through the premium tax on insurance companies, we could form a reinsurance pool if the federal government would give us permission. And that's why we're here today. We got permission from the federal government to use that $300 million as a reinsurance pool so the most vulnerable people in the state of Maryland can get affordable, accessible health care. Now, what happens if we don't get that? The fact of the matter is those vulnerable people would have went to the hospitals. That would have been their doctor's offices, the most expensive health care they would have got. And who was going to pay for that? That was going to be paid in the all-payer system. That was going to come back to the commercial marketplace. That was going to come back to the Blue Crosses, the Aetnas, the Cignas, and so forth that had products in the state of Maryland. And that would have raised rates for everybody. This helps keep the rate down. We're fortunate to have the waiver that the governor helped with for the all-payer system going for 5 years. And when we get this waiver, it'll help stabilize our marketplace and keep people insured. I want to take a chance to thank Jocelyn Pena-Mellick. Stand up here, kid. Being in a speaker is you have to identify the best talent. And she led the charge in the House for this piece of legislation. I want to thank Nick Kipke, I see sitting in the back. Nick Kipke serves on that committee, did a wonderful job as well. And I know other legislators, and I'm not going to call everybody out because I don't know if they're here or not, but I see Senator Casemeyer, who worked very hard with Senator Feldman and Senator Middleton to make this happen as well. And I want to thank the governor, because the governor provided all the assistance we needed from his administration to make this go forward. This was a team effort, but it was the most important team effort that we had during this legislative session. And I think the citizens of Maryland are going to be very appreciative of what's taken place. So it was a great privilege for me to be involved. It was great to be around all these great leaders, President of the Senate, and you know, I don't know the history that he knows here. I was only a page when Washington was here. But you know, I saw he and Bobby Neal walking back and forth. Well, thank you very much for being here. Great day for Maryland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would make the observation that you are 1 year older than I am. Questions, Governor?
Yeah, we'd be happy to take a few questions from the media. First, on those two comments, let me just say that we had the President of the Senate and the Speaker when we first, thanks to all their great work, they got this old Senate chamber redone. It was my first year as governor. We finally were getting it open. And we were walking through there, and we had the statue of George Washington, and President Miller was telling me, here's where somebody sat, here's where Washington actually stood. And I said to him, Mike, where were you when George was making that speech?